What's the most out-of-touch thing you heard from rich people? So, there I was, sipping on my instant coffee that tastes like sadness and crushed dreams, when my friend, let's call him Chadwick, invited me to a dinner party at his penthouse. Chadwick is the kind of rich guy who thinks it's quirky to wear sneakers with a $5,000 suit and says things like money can't buy happiness while his private chef prepares his 7th-course meal of the evening. But hey, free food is free food, right? Anyway, I dusted off my one and only pair of nice jeans and headed over to Chadwick's skyscraper in the sky. As soon as I walked into his palatial abode, I felt like I was in an episode of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, except without the charming British host. The place was dripping with luxury. There were chandeliers made of what I can only assume were Swarovski tears and a view that made me wonder why anyone would ever leave this place. The evening started innocuously enough. There was small talk about the stock market, which I know nothing about, so I just nodded a lot. Discussions about private schools, again, nodding like a bobblehead, and some debate over the best vintage of wine, still nodding, but starting to feel like my neck might give out. It was during this debate that Chadwick dropped the most out-of-touch bombshell I've ever heard. Chadwick, holding a glass of something that probably cost more than my car, turned to me and said, "You know, I've always wondered what it must be like to fly commercial." He said it with such genuine curiosity, like he was pondering the existence of Bigfoot or debating the merits of flat versus round Earth theories. I blinked at him. "You mean, like, regular airplanes? With regular people?" He nodded earnestly. "Yes. I've heard it's quite an adventure. Can you imagine having to sit next to a stranger? And those little packets of peanuts. How quaint. Now, I've flown commercial more times than I can count. It's not quaint. It's like being herded into a flying metal tube where personal space is a myth and legroom is a fairy tale you tell children to make them behave." But Chadwick was looking at me with such wide-eyed wonder that I didn't have the heart to burst his bubble. "Yeah," I said slowly. "It's definitely something." Chadwick exclaimed, "I knew it. It must be so thrilling. I've thought about trying it out, you know, for the experience." I couldn't help myself. "Why don't you? You could probably buy out an entire row." He laughed, a sound so rich it probably had a trust fund. "Oh, I wouldn't want to deprive anyone of their seat. Besides, my jet is just so convenient." Convenient. Right. Because having a personal jet isn't just about convenience. It's about the convenience of not having to breathe the same air as us peasants. But the evening wasn't done with its parade of out-of-touch moments. After dinner, which involved courses I couldn't pronounce and ingredients I didn't know existed, we moved to the living room, where Chadwick's wife, let's call her Muffy, was showing off her new handbag. This wasn't just any handbag. This was a handbag made from the skin of some rare, probably extinct animal and cost more than my annual rent. Muffy, with all the sincerity in the world, said, "I just had to get it. It spoke to me, you know. It said, 'Muffy, you deserve me.'" I glanced at the bag. It was a bag. It didn't speak. If anything, it silently screamed, "I am excess in material form." But Muffy was cradling it like a newborn baby, and who was I to argue with that kind of love? As the night wore on, the hits kept coming. Chadwick's buddy, let's call him Bryce, regaled us with tales of his latest vacation to some private island that he couldn't even remember the name of. It was so remote, there was no cell service. It was absolutely dreadful. I had to talk to my wife the entire time. Then there was the discussion about hiring personal assistants. "I just don't understand how people manage without one," said another guest, twirling his glass of vintage despair. "Who keeps track of their schedules? Who picks up their dry cleaning?" "Me. I do. I keep track of my own schedule, and I pick up my own dry cleaning when I remember to actually take it in, which is almost never because I own exactly 3 things that require dry cleaning. But sure, tell me more about how hard it is to find good help these days." By the end of the night, my brain was overloaded with the kind of rich person problems that make you question reality. I mean, Chadwick's biggest worry was whether his wine cellar was large enough to accommodate his latest shipment from France. My biggest worry was whether I had enough gas to get home. As I was leaving, Chadwick handed me a little gift bag. "Just a token of appreciation for coming," he said. Inside was a bottle of wine and a candle that smelled like wealth and unattainable dreams. "Thanks," I said, because what else do you say? On the ride home, I couldn't help but laugh. It was like I'd stepped into an alternate universe where the biggest issues were the freshness of caviar and the comfort of bespoke shoes. And while it was entertaining in a surreal, detached kind of way, I was also reminded that there's a whole world out there that's completely alien to most of us. So, the most out-of-touch thing I've heard from a rich person? Definitely Chadwick's curiosity about flying commercial. It's a reminder that, for some people, reality is a flexible concept, molded by layers of cashmere and dipped in gold leaf. And as ridiculous as it all sounds, it's also a reminder to stay grounded and appreciate the little things, like flying coach and eating peanuts that aren't organic, gluten-free, or truffle-infused. And that, my friends, is why I'll stick to my instant coffee and thrift store finds. Because in the end, it's not about the handbag that whispers sweet nothings, or the wine that costs a mortgage payment. It's about the stories we gather and the laughter we share, preferably over a beer that costs less than a small country's GDP.